Hi guys, it's Kelly here and I'm back with another video for Honeybee Stamps. We are getting into fall. So here I pulled out, it's the burlap die, the wagon wheel, fall bounty, the mushrooms, the apple barrel. And then I pulled out two different sentiment sets. I ended up using the Get Well Soon. And then that one I've pulled for another card. It was just in the wrong it was in the wrong pile. So I am going to cut all of my die cuts out of white today because we are going to be coloring with our OLO markers and looking at, kind of the different blends and stuff there. So everything was cut out of 80-pound Nina Solar White cardstock. And then when I have something like this where I'm working with a lot of lovely layers, I like to separate them out so I know what all of my pieces parts go to. It just helps me keep everything straight. And so as is typical, for some reason, and I don't know why, when it comes to these fall cards, because I did the same thing last year, but I would just use the autumn, no, what is that? Is it autumn greenery? I don't think that's what that's called. But anyway, I did flowers and the little apple barrel. And so true to form, I am trying to fit 10 pounds of produce in a 5-pound barrel. There's a lot going on in this card. I just couldn't stop myself. So anyway, so I like to, when I'm doing my lovely layers and I'm coloring them with alcohol markers, I like to go in with my lightest color, mark out where my shadows are going to be. And then that way I know as these things are layering on top of each other that I have really good placement for my shadows. A lot of the ones that we are using today don't have that many layers, or the layers are obvious, like on the front of this apple barrel, it's pretty obvious where the band is going to go, like the metal band for the barrel. So I didn't need to lay down that layer to mark it. I could just look at it and see. So we've talked about before with Copic markers, how to figure out which way, like what families will work well together. And in Copic markers, it's looking at the last number. I haven't worked with Olos enough to know if there is a trick to this one as well. But we are going to be blending some color families here to get some lovely fall colors. And we're going to be talking a little bit about like color glazing to kind of change the shade. In the video that I did last year that I was just telling you about, where I did basically the same exact thing of putting too many elements in there, we talked about warm and cool colors. I'll link that to the end of the video if you are interested in seeing that. It's that one is with Copic markers. So if you don't have Olos and you do have Copics, then you could use that video as a good guide for color combinations. So Olo is like, they don't have as many colors out as Copic, which is totally fine. You don't need all of the Copic markers and you don't need all of the Olo markers either. But they are coming out with another 96. I am, as somebody who owns all of the ones that they have thus far, I am excited for the next 96 because I'm really, really hoping that they kind of expand on their browns. So this is a little bit warmer than I wanted it to be. And so in order to kind of knock that back, I'm going to have to do a little bit of glazing. For the metal barrel, I wanted to use the warm grays because I'm using a cooler brown for the wagon wheel, and so I thought that those would work really nicely together. And what I talk about when I talk about color glazing is putting one color over top of the other colors to change the hue. So basically, we're putting one color over the top of another color to sometimes change the temperature. That's what we're doing today. Or sometimes to change the base of it. So some colors are based in warm color, some color based in cool colors. So this was too warm for me. So I chose a warm gray. So it's still going to be on the warm side. It's just going to be a little cooler and less orange than it was before. So I went with the 5 because that seemed like it was going to work well and not bleach out all my other shading. So I tried that. Sometimes we do have to try a couple of different things. I highly recommend, if you've never never done it before, and you've colored the whole thing like I did there with that apple barrel, I would highly recommend doing like a cheat sheet where you put out the colors you've used. So in our case, it was a lot of O's and ORs that were on the warmer side in the 3 section. I think we used a 3.8, a 3.7, a 2.7, that's super warm, and a 3.4, I think is what we used. And so I would like kind of lay all of those out together on like a pretty simple blend on just a scrap piece of paper. And then I would go over it like just a couple of lines of different grays to figure out which one was going to work the best. That's the best way to kind of try that out. So here, these are the grays that or the browns I was talking about before that are a little bit on the cooler side, but there's not a ton of them. And these are the 7 family. So this is the 7.8, 7.7, and 7.3. There's quite a gap between the 7.7 and the 7.3. I am hoping that they give us maybe a middle, like a 7.5 in between. But now I did, with the help of my wonderful sister, was able to get together the list of the individual markers. So I'll be listing them out individually as we go in the future. Before, I used to just link the whole collection because that's really all I had in my link list. For the middle of the wheel, I am going with a cooler gray. I will be using these same cool grays for my mushrooms, just a little bit on the lighter side of the family. So I wanted there to be some warm elements and some cool elements, and because we have one of the reasons why I chose the cooler browns for the wagon wheel and I wanted it to be a bit cooler for the apple barrel is because we have so many warm colors with fall. These apples, these pumpkins, the leaves, like everything is warm. And so I wanted to make sure that we had some cooler elements in there for balance. So to color these apples, I went in with my darkest color and added that shading to where the top of the apple indents, where the stem would sit. And then in the bottom, they have like the 3 little bumps. And I actually think there's a difference. Like there's four bumps or 3 bumps is like if they're male or female. I don't know. But anyway, there's something interesting about that if you want to Google it. I don't have all the information. But I do like adding a little bit of shading up from that bottom, kind of rounded around the sides. And then that way it's giving us a really nice shape. I did a little experimenting with a YG 2.3 and a Y 1.2, and then into kind of the reds. This did work fairly well because I was experimenting and this wasn't like I didn't have a tried and true combination of colors. I did try to keep the same kind of premise with the colors. The last number, like I went with a 2.3 and then a 1.2, so the 2 and the 3, and then the red that I blended it into was a 0.3. So I kind of followed that same thing and it did work fairly well. I will have to talk to, I don't know if any of you know Lori Craig. She works with OLO. She's endlessly talented. And so I'll have to speak with her and see if she has any other ideas for how to pick those families. But as of right now, following that same kind of rule where we, look at the number at the end does seem to be working for us. So for the mushrooms, I went again with these cool grays, trying to give them a little bit of texture. You can see the texture that's embossed into the bases. I will be honest, I was very heavy-handed with my grays, and I tried to fix it in the end. I think it does end up looking okay, but you should be aware that, if you wanted to read like truly white, probably be less heavy-handed with your C5. Is it a C5? Yeah, CG5. See, I have to learn the lingo, y'all. So here is where I went in with the C0 and I just went over the top of everything, just trying to lighten everything up. That did work somewhat, but like you can't you can't put white in where you color over it. You know what I'm saying? So for the tops of the mushrooms, I am adding that C5, C3, and then C1 to like coming over the tops of the edges. I'm leaving true white on the edges of those ones. And then for these ones, there's lots of kind of like little nooks and crannies. So I am adding that, you know, little bit where the dye dips in. I'm adding a little bit of shading, and then along the edges it has a lot of embossed detail, so I added some detail there. For the other one, I did the same thing as I did with the first one. I just kept the shading more toward the top. For the gourds and well, I guess pumpkins are still technically gourds, but the one that looks like a butternut squash versus a spaghetti squash instead of just like a pumpkin, I wanted to mix these up so that we would have a little bit of a break amongst the just onslaught of color, which I knew that I was going to have. So I did two of my pumpkins orange, and then I did two of my squash like a warm gray, so almost like a kind of like a cream color, and then two of them I did green. Looking back and watching the video, which is always so funny, like, because you can see things in the editing that you don't realize at the time that you're doing it. I definitely could have left the pumpkin and the apple and the leaves in the bottom left-hand side of the card off, and it would have been totally fine, but I didn't. And so there is an overabundance of produce in this particular card, so you'll have to let me know what you think about it. Speaking of letting me know what you think, I do want to tell you guys thank you so much for your feedback and your input. I always appreciate that. So I did a little bit of an experiment with the live that we did, and I did, I edited the video for 30 minutes. I edited the video for 1 hour to keep the live element, and then just the original, which last week's was particularly long because we did a scene card. So you guys were wonderful. You gave me your feedback. I totally appreciate that. And what I found was that people want to watch it while it's happening, like watch the full live, or they want to watch the 30-minute video. Thank God Almighty, like thank you Jesus, because the one in between to edit it to the hour was the one that was the most time consuming. So I'm glad that one's off the table. So going forward, you can see the original on the Honeybee channel and the edited 30-minute video on my channel. Here I'm just coloring in the squash stems. I'm just using those same browns that we used before for the barrel and for the wagon wheel. And then what do we do after that? Oh, the leaves. Yeah, we're going to do the leaves. So I really appreciate your guys' feedback on that, and I think that should be good going forward. So for the leaves, I did some of them just true green, and then I did some of them like green into yellow, into orange, into red, some of them orange, yellow, red. So just so that we would have a variety of different looks. These leaves are from the Lovely Layers Fall Bounty. It's the same one that has the gourds in it. I basically found the same thing. So in trying to blend the yellows into the oranges into the reds, that I found the same thing to be true with paying attention to that last number. I did kind of go a little bit like wild with all of the different combinations. You certainly could color more of them like a regular color or a more solid color, but I like a lot of color variation. So it might have even been too much, honestly. It might have been better if I'd have just stuck to green leaves, but I didn't, and it is what it is. So one thing I do want to know is, and this is true of any alcohol markers you're using, if you find that you're getting a line of demarcation from one color to the next, go back over it with the lightest color, and that typically will help it blend quite a bit. Now, here's that burlap. Do you see over there on the right hand side that I originally die cut out? I did not end up using that in this card, so maybe I will use it in another card in the future, because I just didn't love it. I already had so much going on in this card because of all of my wonderful brightly colored produce that like I didn't need another element. Your girl did not need one more thing going on. And so I decided to switch to a background that kept it super simple. I will show you just a very quick blurb of what that looked like in case you super love the layered vibe and you're like, no, I really wanted to see what that would look like with that other aspect. Something else to note, I did not put the apple barrel together. I made that mistake before. And because I need to slide my apples and my leaves and my things into the barrel, so I did not put them together. These come together, like I said, super quickly, and I didn't even cut stems for all of my apples. I just cut like one or two, because I was like, I don't need all of that. Maybe it would have been, I don't know, maybe it would have been better with the stems, because maybe it would have been something else to kind of break up the red and the orange, like all those bright warm colors. Something else that I'm super looking forward to with the next OLO releases, I hope that they release more purpley based reds. I prefer those to tomato reds, and right now tomato reds is really all we've got going on. So here, putting the stems on, again with the lovely layers. Honeybee always has all of the layering guides on their website, so you just go to the whatever set it is. In this case, like the Fall Bounty, open up that layering guide. It opens as a PDF. You can save it as a PDF. You can print it, and keep it with your set, whatever is easiest for you. I chose to go with You're on My Mind and In My Heart for my sentiment. I have a friend who's kind of going through a hard time, and I didn't want to send a like more muted, like woe is me kind of thing, because that's just not the kind of person she is. She's a bright color kind of person. So I decided that this would be a fun card to send to her, and she could leave that out during the fall season. So I did stamp it on craft cardstock, and stamped it with our brilliant white pigment ink. Why can't I think? So here's that little sneak peek of seeing everything together. Didn't love that. It was just a little bit too busy. So I am going to switch over to doing just a simple ink blended background, a little bit of green toward the bottom, a little bit of blue toward the top, and then some little spatters of water and perfect pearls, because shine, hello, that I'm just a shiny person. And so is my friend. So yeah, it's going to be like, I feel like it's a super busy week, and it's already Tuesday, and it's only Tuesday and I'm already overwhelmed. Yesterday we didn't do the premiere. Yesterday we're doing it today instead, because I was over in the unboxing for the SCT event I'm teaching for Honeybee. So I was over there doing that, and then I have another couple of videos that are due toward the end of the week. So hopefully you're not sick of seeing me, because you're going to see me a lot. And then we also have the live tomorrow, and that is 1 p.m. Eastern time. And we will be seeing a little sneak peek of the upcoming release. So if you're interested in checking that out, I hope that you can stop by. I know that it doesn't always work with everybody's schedules, and I completely understand that. So you can always catch the replay also if you want to see the little sneaky sneak. But those are always super fun to do. Several of you have asked me in the lives. I do believe we finally have a release date, which is going to be the 24th, September 24th. So it is going to be coming up pretty quickly. So we will do the release party, I believe that night. And yeah, so exciting stuff. Exciting stuff coming up. So here I'm just showing you kind of how I'm arranging all of the items into the barrel. So I'm just gluing them down, and if I need to kind of like, I'm not putting a ton of glue on them, because I might need to like pry up a corner to slide a leaf behind or something like that. I am totally aware of how I normally put my cards together. If you are a person who like you're like, I know I want to line it all up, and then I just want to be able to glue it exactly as I left it. Try the hinge method. The press and sell hinge method works super well. Here, I was not even so committed to it. I didn't even glue down like the actual wheel and the basket until the barrel, until I knew 100% where it was going to go. So right now, my wagon wheel looks like it's floating in the middle of the air. It's a magic wagon wheel. But it won't look that way forever. Like, just hang tight. As soon as we start to get in some other elements, it will look more grounded. In addition to the elements helping it look grounded, we're also going to go in again with those same greens and add a little bit of shadow underneath those elements. That is also going to help them to be a bit more grounded and not like they're just, floating off in some sort of autumn splendor space. So once I got those done, then I'm going to work in quadrants. So I'm going to glue my elements down, and then I am going to put my grasses in, my shadows in underneath them. And then I'll move on to the next kind of space, glue those down, and add in my extra shadows. You could not glue them down and just kind of ballpark where they're going to be just by holding them there. That would also be fine, because here I made a little boo-boo, and I'm just, you guys know I like to leave all the things in. So here I had partially glued down my pumpkin so that I could get the placement of my mushrooms correct. And then I was doing my grasses in behind it. And can you see on the back side of that pumpkin, I got green marker and it's bleeding through the front. So first things first, I'm going to try to see if I can kind of bleach it out a little bit with the orange. That did not work great. And now I know I'm going to have to cover it. So I'm going to then put in my apple, my leaves, and I will strategically position one leaf over that area so you won't be able to see it. Once I had everything glued down for some added dimension, I did go back in and put in some shadows of the maybe apple sitting in front of the pumpkin, or the apple sitting in front of the gourds. I did add a little bit of extra shadows and then kind of blended those out just for some added dimension. I feel like I probably needed to use some darker colors. That's one of the reasons why it's hard to get definition or dimension if you're using nothing but bright colors. Muted colors play better for that. But that's something that we can work on together, because I'm still learning too. So I didn't like the craft cardstock. I added some scorched timber. I added some of that and kind of played around with it, and I didn't love that either. And part of the reason that I didn't love it is because you couldn't see the wheel behind it. So I'm just going to cut it apart. This one I think is a little bit of an older set. Honeybee for the most part cuts out the middle of these themselves now, but I just cut it into two separate sentiments, just kind of following along the general guideline shape of the embossing, and it worked just fine. So it still says you're on my mind and in my heart, but now it's just two separate pieces. So I'm going to glue that down. I like that you can still see the wheel in between it. I wanted to add some gemstones because shimmer, hello. And I added those from the Fall is in the Air. And then I did add shimmer to our produce, as well as some highlights with my white gel pen. And then that's pretty much the whole card. Oh, I did add the some stripes to like the little green gourds, because you see that a lot in real life. And so I thought that would add just a little bit of charms and whimsy to it. So thank you guys so much for joining me. I hope to see you tomorrow in the live at 1 p.m. on Honeybee's channel. Thank you again so much for your time, and I will catch you on the next video. Bye.